This is The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're watching The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of, or listening to The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of, or listening and watching to The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of, brought to you by, I don't know, somebody, I don't know.
Heritage and Prop Store.
Heritage and Prop Store. Oh, very nice, very nice. This first half, however, will be brought to you by Flips Coin, Prop Store. We don't know whose turn it is. So this first half of the show is brought to you by Prop Store, propstore.com. Their big LA auction. No, UK auction. No, LA auction coming in August. LA auction.
Yep. Auction is next in August. They just had a big poster auction out of LA that wrapped this week. There was some really amazing stuff in there. Some really nice, lobby car. I mean, they've really the quality of the rarity of the pieces, not the quality, but I would say the rarity of wow, they have one of those has really gone up. And I think particularly since Gray started working for them.
More or less forced myself not to look. I mean, I looked eventually, but I really did just go.
I didn't look until the physical catalog came, and then I gotta
not look because there's no room, there's no nothing, and he's finding really cool stuff.
Yeah,
and I just was just like, but it was neat,
gorgeous stuff. Gorgeous.
Yeah, really, really cool. And it looked like stuff. I don't know enough about poster prices, but it looked like things were selling. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that I forget exactly what the movie was, but they tweeted something that sold for over 50. So yeah, I mean that's big. That's a big deal in any poster auction. So yeah,
because that's that's like Jackie Chan Hong Kong poster price.
Oh yeah, I mean at least.
I mean that's crazy. Yeah, that's huge money.
Yeah.
What is new in props? I actually have something new in props that.
Is it a prop?
It is a prop adjacent. Okay. I guess it is. I will tell the funny story which is I don't think I've told anyone about this, or maybe I mentioned this like literally 2 years ago, because of course this is something I picked up about 2 years ago, but my buddy who found it was holding on to it for me. And at some point, I guess relatively recently, he was like, "Are you ever getting this?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah." So it was the equivalent of the Jackie Chan posters in the closet, but I did
found money.
I did pick them up, and I was actually very happy. It was a twofer from what year was the King Kong? Is that 76 or 77? I never remember the year. 76.
Yeah.
The 76 Dino De Laurentiis King Kong, which I am absolutely fine in saying is not as good as the original King Kong. I have no problem.
Wow.
I want to
You're
say
going out there.
I'm not looking for a fight. I have no problem saying it is not as good as the original King Kong, but it is the King Kong I saw. I don't know how else to say that. Do you know
You're
what I mean?
also the man who thinks that Jaws 3D is a lesser film than the original.
It's not quite as good as the other two. Yeah. It doesn't live up to 2's majesty. That's the problem with Jaws 3. So anyway, it's the one 6-year-old me saw. And I guess whatever you want to say about the movie itself, I think the poster art is incredible. The John Berkey, the poster art, and there's like 5 or 6 additional poster pieces that were used for like subway art and album art. There's the one with the snakes and the one I love
because
all
they
of
promoted
those.
the hell out of it. It was like the movie of the year.
Yeah, that's what Dino did. And I love the art. I love the way Kong looks, and I love all of the products and stuff that was associated with that movie when it came out in 76, because all of a sudden you could find a lot of like rubber gorillas and robot gorillas and all sorts of cool. It was gorilla centric. So
was this the birth of your love for gorillas?
I think so. I honestly think it comes certainly partially from there, if nothing else, or at least being sort of taken by it, and then just all the stuff that flowed into the market, I guess. But a little bit also like, every time there was like a gorilla, like in Looney Tunes and stuff, who's always sort of, the gorillas were always kind of fun in Looney Tunes, like, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. So what my buddy turned up for me, and these have existed before, so it's not a one of a kind thing. It's and I'll put a picture up. It's yay tall, right? You all listening can see what I'm doing with my hands.
It's about yay.
Yeah.
The metric equivalent.
It looks about like 2 feet tall or so. It's a King Kong maquette. that I think was some kind of crew gift, but also giveaway, because there's enough of them that it seems like more than a crew gift. So I do need to get to the bottom of the full story. It's got a plaque on it and stuff. So maybe it was presented to theaters or something, but it was definitely part of the promotion. But it is this large maquette of Kong, and it's just fantastic, and I absolutely love it. And then as an added bonus, and you will get a kick out of this, a King Kong-shaped whiskey bottle where Kong's head is the screw-on of the bottle. There's no whiskey in it, but it's a licensed bottle from like 76, 77, and it's got like Paramount and Dino De Laurentiis's like
who's the
name
maker?
on
like
it.
Who's the whiskey maker?
I wish I literally can text you pictures right now if you want to look at it as we are live. You can sort of see if you can see anything. I'm going to just do this. I don't know if there's enough information on it. There was the red whiskey sticker was on it, but like on the but I didn't take a picture of that. All right, see if you can see what this is. If there's any information you can see, but you'll get a kick out of the bottle. And actually, I'll send you a picture of what and we're putting these up. These will be on the Instagram. These will be in the YouTube, etc. So you can all look along at the same time, everyone. But I will. I'll send you that too. But just a great looking bottle, kind of a torso of Kong up, and like I said, the giant sort of open mouthed head.
This reminds me of.
There was a Godzilla one recently, right? In the last couple of years, I feel like.
Well, Suntory, who's the Japanese, they would do these sort of porcelain bottles for the Lunar New Year. So if it was like, there's like the animal, but then there's the color. So like there would be the white dragon bottle and then the green monkey bottle, those things. And they're just very reminiscent of that. But it just says,
if you're just joining us, you're listening to Paramount Whiskey Talk with Dave Mandel and Ryan Condal. I don't know.
It's a
I'll see if I can take
this
something else anywhere. But anyway,
I love it.
Two King Kong
I like the maquette a lot too. The maquette,
the maquette
very,
is
very cool.
The maquette is really neat. You can see there's a plaque on it, and it is just I'm not sure I'm looking to. I would love to get one of the pieces of Berkey art. If one of the poster pieces comes up for sale or auction or whatever, I'm definitely I'm a player on that. I love this piece. I'm not sure I need anything from the movie, like a real prop per se. You know what I mean? Like if I don't know, James whatever Jeff Bridges like safari shirt comes up, I'm probably not bidding. But like I said, I really love the monkey. So maybe something monkey related, Kong
very
related.
good.
So very cool. Ryan, how about you? Anything what's new in props, as they say?
Well, I do actually, and this is going to be very exciting to the listeners, particularly I think to you, Dave, because it's always nice to complete a set, to complete a collection of something.
Oh, yes.
And this week I did it. I have made the trilogy of my prop store sent me something else in the mail, and they put in the mail my most recent trophy for the favorite host, the Dave 10 Ryan 10 contest winner.
What was that movie? Where Ed Helms is the salesman. It's like the small town.
Oh yeah.
And you're
Cedar
now
Rapids.
Cedar Rapids. You're now a 3 diamond. You're now.
Yes.
We need our 3 diamond certification.
Three diamond
much
certification.
like in that movie, it is accomplished by bribery and sexual favor.
No comment. Season 5, right there, the brand new one.
Boo.
There you go.
Oh, boo. Oh, you got another one there? Let's see.
Yeah. This is the first one, so that's season 3.
Boo.
And then there's season 4. So 3 seasons.
That one I like. I like 4.
That was my best. That was my best work. I think that 4 was the V'ger season. Yeah. That was your favorite.
I can't argue with the V'ger. That's where you beat me by like $4 million.
So I'm like the Edmonton Oilers, Dave, of the movie prop podcasting. Just a dynasty.
I do appreciate that Chuck or whoever just stuck it in. Like, oh, you guys are sending a package to Ryan?
Yeah.
Throw this in.
Yeah. I saw it on the customs declaration because it's a whole long story, but these 4Ks weren't available here. So I ordered them for the nerds here that couldn't get them in the US
Oh,
because
is
they
this
were
the
US.
the aliens one, the alien box set, or
The
the Conan?
Abyss.
Oh, the Abyss. Oh,
The
wow.
Abyss, yeah. And not released in the UK because of animal cruelty over the drowning rat lab rat
dear
thing.
Lord.
Yeah. So available here, I think, digitally, but not on physical media.
Sure.
So go figure. Anyway, so for all the physical media nerds here, I did a service and I had them sent to Prop Store. They very kindly turned them around to me. And on the customs declaration, it said DVDs and I think award. And I was like looking at it and I was like, oh, I know what that is, because they didn't even mention it. They just stuffed it in the box. So very kind of them. So thank you, Prop Store.
At some
this episode
point,
brought to you by Prop Store.
Brought to you by Prop Store. At some point, and this is truly like I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, and I'm sort of hating myself as I say it. I feel like I need a really good master list of everything that has come out in 4K, and to figure out like what don't I have? Like what
there is
skip
a tracking
and what
one on
is there
on one of the forums. I can send you the link and you can just see it. It's massive.
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
And this year has been really good for new stuff. Once Upon a Time in the West is coming in about a month. Conan, clearly. Chinatown is coming. I mean, they're kind of cleaning up all the movies where you're like, how is that not on 4K?
Right.
Is they're sort of hitting this year.
As we now phase from whiskey chat into digital bits chat,
this is relevant. This is relevant.
No, it is very relevant.
I actually I have mentioned to you, but I do want to try to get Bill Hunt onto the podcast.
Oh,
at
I'd
some
be thrilled.
point,
I'd be
who's the editor in chief of the Digital Bits. He's the guy that tracks all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a Patreon supporter of his, and I love all the work that he does for bringing physical media information to us. But I also think he's such a proponent of it that he actually helps get it made in a way, because he's the one that's there reminding them that like people love this. And if there's any example, Aliens released on 4K in March, and they're just now fulfilling orders 6 weeks later because the over demand was so high that they actually had to go and replicate more of them to
I had my question
demand.
to you, and then I have a question and a comment. My question to you is, how do you feel about sometimes like how these things look when they, and sometimes I don't notice, and sometimes I do notice, where I look at something and I go, that's not quite what it looked like in my mind's eye of back in the day, whether it's a color thing or something. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm a purist in a way. Like, I love movie grain, but I'm
not even talking about grain. I'm talking about like sometimes where you kind of go, boy,
color,
I remember that blue or not so blue or whatever it is,
Yeah, I mean, I just want it as the director intended it. I think because it's so hard to say. I mean, 4K just does not look like film. It just doesn't.
Right.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is gorgeous in 4K. It simply did not look like that in the theater. Right. It was a mushy analog image that even a first run print in a great theater did not look as good as it does at home. But I don't think anybody is throwing their 4K out because it looks too good.
No,
so
especially by the way,
weird...
if you're trying to authenticate props. So I completely agree, but I do miss the mush sometimes. You know what I mean? And it's not just the mush. Like I said, sometimes I look at things and I just go, is all of a sudden this green? And I will pull out an old DVD, because I still have those too, and I kind of go, I think this was closer. Again, maybe the director's intent has changed. Maybe he always wanted it to be blue, and I mean, this is where it goes.
There's a that's a Star Wars thing. Every Star Wars release, the color timing changes, and it's memory is such a weird thing. Who can remember what it actually looked like in the theater? What you really need to go back is look at one of the prints. Look at one of those really nicely restored prints, which we can do. And I mean, there's a lot of controversy around Aliens, particularly because Cameron used AI to essentially degrain the film, because he was never happy
filled in things. Right.
Yes, he was never happy with the amount of grain. I think it was the film stock that was needed to be able to shoot in those dark conditions. And I think with that came a lot of grain, and I think he just sort of accepted it at the time. So look, he's the director. That's what he wanted to do. I think it's less in this case, the missing grain and more the execution of it that I think people are bothered by. And there is a weird uncanny valley thing going on at times.
There's a little bit of a sheen in a weird way, like
waxiness and things like that, where skin tones don't quite look as good. I mean, it's very clear and crisp. I watched it this weekend because it just arrived, and I was going to pop in the Blu-ray and put it into my 4K player at upscale and just see how different is it.
Right.
The Blu-ray was great. I mean, it was a reference quality Blu-ray when it came out. And the other thing is the sound. And I don't think anybody is arguing that they wouldn't want a surround sound Atmos soundtrack versus the mono or stereo soundtrack that comes with the original. So purism is it's a spectrum.
And as you say, I'm not sure our memories of what we saw the first time is 100% accurate either.
I didn't see it
too. Yeah,
sure. So many of my experiences are, the first time I saw this was on VHS. I mean, for a hilarious example, for I don't know, 10 years of my childhood, when Luke is looking through the macro binoculars and says, "Oh, there's one of the sand people right now." I can see him. It's like, what's he looking at? Because it was pan and scan, and they chopped off they chopped off the sand person. And it wasn't until the letter.
That's how Lucas wanted you to see it. No, that's correct. Yeah,
that's how he intended.
He was pissed that the people in the theater could see it. Originally, that he wanted it smaller and boxier.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So it wasn't until the widescreen or letterbox VHS came out that you could see all the glorious things that he meant you to see. And anyway, so digression. But this is an interesting topic, and I think it's interesting to prop collectors, people that want clear images.
And I'm going to go one step beyond, because you and I are both card-carrying members of the Writers Guild of America.
Literally.
I'd be very curious to know, because obviously DVDs for such a long time was one of the financial foundations of these companies that they obviously hid from anybody creative, because they didn't really want you to know what the sales were, because they didn't want to pay any money on them, which, by the way, they contractually didn't have to pay any money on it, because many years ago they were like, DVDs, that's not a thing. And I am just curious that with some of these 4Ks, how much they've upped the output, and that some of these things are selling like gangbusters. And I think I do wonder about that, just economically speaking, like what is that adding to the bottom line, and are people paying attention to this? You're listening to Economic Chat Talk and whiskey and whatever. Anyway, that's just a neither point.
Unfortunately, Dave, will surprise you, but the 2014 smash hit Hercules has not yet been released on 4K.
Is it on the list? Is it coming?
So I think it's at the very top of their list. Along
I don't
with,
think Eurotrip has made
Tombstone
the cut quite yet for 4K.
The original unaltered Star Wars trilogy. I think Hercules is number 3.
The boobs in the 4K Eurotrip to be a little Uncanny Valley-y. That's the problem. And the penises. Yeah.
Is Eurotrip available digitally?
Yes,
it must be.
And I believe it's available digitally. And it's funny, like all movies, like months will go by, and then all of a sudden it's just back up on, like whatever HBO or whatever, and just in rotation. It makes me laugh. Always makes me laugh that it's there. Yeah.
Something happened this past quarter, or they audited them. It was a catch up, but I got a crazy Hercules residual 10 years later. Like they've done, they've been solid and steady, but then they sort of dipped off. But then there was this crazy Hercules residual, and I don't know, did it show up on it? Did they sell it back to HBO, or did they just get audited and forced to pay up?
Oh, sure,
yeah, okay.
Just call that just call that for the prop fund. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. Whatever for whatever you're buying.
I went right to propstore.com and used my Dave 10 code.
Thank you. That's how bad things are. You're shilling for me. The final part, I can't believe we're still doing what's new in props, but this is huge, and actually will take us into sort of our topic today. There is actually a topic today. I think any prop fan in the world probably has seen this story, which has slowly broken over the last couple of months, but kind of came to a head this week with the spectacular announcement, and we've got some headlines up for you as well, that the original Enterprise, the model of the Enterprise, had been found. And as the story goes, it ended up at Heritage and then was returned to the Roddenberry family, Rod Roddenberry being the, I believe, the son of Gene Roddenberry, and it being returned to him. A fascinating story where it showed up on eBay about, I don't know, I'll say 6 months ago, but I'm sure I'm wrong by the time.
3 months, maybe.
Okay. It showed up on eBay. The story in eBay was that a guy had gotten it at one of those storage unit sales, like on Storage Wars or whatever, where you're basically just, I think, blindly bidding on storage units that have gone unpaid. Won it, put it up for auction with pictures. It's the again, you can see the pictures, but it's the Enterprise on this wood grain base. The wood grain matches. It's the one you see them holding in the pictures. It's the one. There's pictures of it on Roddenberry's desk, Gene Roddenberry's desk. I believe it's the one from the opening
it's like the
credit. Yeah,
3-footer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely incredible. And I guess basically it went to Heritage for authentication, brought to you by Prop Store. They authenticated it. I think a bunch of people sort of joined in, various Star Trek creatives over the years and effects guys. Everybody sort of jumped in. They authenticated what it was. And then I don't know what happened particularly. It sounds like the seller was given something, but then it has now been returned to Roddenberry. There's no indication, even though Heritage was involved, that's coming up for auction anytime soon, although I guess you never know. But just a fascinating lost prop story, like one of the great. We've talked a little bit every now and then about an episode about the great lost props, and this is something that I think would have been on our list, except now it has been found. And it's spectacular. I mean, let's just start with that. It's pretty incredible.
It's really
it was
great
found, but also what it is. And you don't have to be a Star Trek guy. I mean, it's just great. It's really, really something.
Yeah, it's a seminal piece of science fiction history. I mean, that's Smithsonian worthy. That piece.
Yeah, I absolutely, because they have the other one, right? They have the huge one. They have the bigger one, which is at the Smithsonian. I am going to say something that I want to be really clear as I say this is a theory. I have no proof of anything.
Speculation only.
Pure speculation only. And maybe this will surprise some people or maybe not. And is pure speculation, which is the timing of the piece being in a storage unit that went unpaid after a certain amount of time and then was sold and obviously ends up ultimately on eBay, I think surprisingly lines up in a very funny way with the death of Greg Jean. And I have zero, this is not proof. This is just, there were always rumors that he had an Enterprise. Again, wherever that fits in.
Yes, I did. I heard the same. Yeah.
He loved Star Trek more than life itself. We've already clearly seen things like the X-Wing and other props that ended up in his, in his world. We have also seen, obviously, there are stories of a guy with a box of Batman props and bumps into Greg and Greg buys it and, buys it because he loves it and preserves it. And again, I got nothing here except the notion of, if for whatever reason, maybe it's size, maybe to keep it from prying eyes, maybe he was going to buy a third garage and fill it with stuff because, we've talked a little bit about all of his stuff.
He ran out of trash bags.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have the right size trash bag, but the notion of putting it in a storage unit for safekeeping, whatever the reason, he dies. And then soon thereafter, a storage unit bill goes unpaid because none of his survivors or friends or family have any idea that he owns a storage unit or that he's renting a storage unit. And the thing pops up. There is something about the timing that, again, this is not a, I don't know what I'm not, this is not an indictment. This is just wouldn't it, it would not shock me. I guess I'm saying it would not shock me. And that is my theory and I'm sticking with it. I don't know. I just throwing that out there. I just think it would be fascinating. And it just seems likely in my mind.
Yeah. The timing coincidence is admittedly strange. And that was one thing that I was, there's so many rumors about Greg had this or had that or didn't. If you believed him, he had Gene Roddenberry himself in a lucite case.
That's in another storage unit that's still
yet to be found.
He paid that one off. Yeah. He did a 2-year buy on that. Yeah.
But I think that was my biggest surprise going through the collection the first time that was, because that was just such a pervasive rumor that was a thing that he had.
Really clear, not that specifically he had that one which had gone missing.
It was just that he had an
enterprise of some sort. Yeah.
And there were enterprise Enterprises.
Enterprise, correct. Yeah.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
In the auction, but nothing screen used. They were all, things that he had built afterwards, and there were used shuttlecraft and certainly,
Yes.
but
there were
but I just,
shuttlecraft ad nauseum. I've never seen so
yes,
many shuttlecraft.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
So that was the one thing that felt off to me.
Yes. And again, no idea, but just to me, it makes sense. And again, I don't know. Look, obviously stuff shows up in storage units all the time, but I don't know. There's something about someone dying as to why you don't pay for your storage unit with the Enterprise sitting in it. That makes some sense. And I will also just say, look, Greg knew everybody. And so if this thing, wherever the hell it went missing, at whatever effects house, and somebody years later was trying to get rid of it, I don't know. I'd call Greg Jean too. Again, it is what it is. It just, I don't know, it makes a certain amount of sense to me.
So let's talk about
now
what it's New Life and what happened afterwards and what we think of that. So it sort of started as an eBay auction with somebody clearly knowing they had an Enterprise, but not in their wildest imagination
they had no
realizing
idea
they
what
had
it was.
Yes,
exactly. Yes, correct. They definitely did not.
And then it ends, through possibly a little intervention, Good Samaritanship from Heritage, / some money changing hands, whatever. It ends up back in the possession of.
I do believe that the seller, the person who went to the trouble with the eBay auction, it sounded like from the articles that person got some kind of a thank you payment, which obviously they should. I mean, I don't know how else you can say that. But at the same time, they also didn't get a chance to sell $1 million prop. I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than that. And I'm not, this is not fair, unfair, whatever. Again, it was returned to the rightful owner, but somebody who didn't do any wrong somewhere in there. I hope they got a suitable payment. I don't know how else to express that. But this does raise this larger issue, especially as we sit here in 2024, as these things, these discoveries, these props, whatever, kind of come to surface, come to light. Who owns them? What is the ownership of this stuff? And by the way, let's go one step further. I bought the X-Wing from Greg, from the auction, from the Greg Jean auction. Till the moment the auction was over, and maybe even up to 24 hours later, I kept wondering, was Lucasfilm gonna, I don't know, swoop in and stop the auction? Just because I don't know what their rights are. I'm not a lawyer enough to know what their rights are. Someone once said to me, I don't know whether, stolen items sometimes have statute of limitations. Art doesn't. Is this art? I mean, these are larger questions. But the point being is,
and some of this stuff is we know it's stolen, but there's no like the looted art from World War II.
Right.
There were reports and provenance and history of like this was stolen in a world altering event, whereas a lot of these props just kind of go missing, and it was taken or it disappeared from the archive or it left this person's office, or in most cases, it just simply disappeared from set. But there's nobody saying at the time, hey, this thing is stolen and missing. So there's nobody bothered with the police report or whatever. So it's just often hard to make a claim that, the way is if your car was stolen, there's a police report and you have a VIN number and then they can, put those things back together.
But let's go one step further, because again, we're talking about, 30, 40 years ago when some of this stuff, and I want to be really clear about this. With the Enterprise, this is something that I think over the years, I think had been reported stolen, I believe, but was sort of known to be missing. So I don't think, I do believe it disappeared, just to be really clear about the Enterprise. However, going back 30, 40 years, there are a lot of things where nobody cared. And so, hey, why don't you take this or just throw it out or whatever. Yep. And so someone either doesn't throw it out or takes it home for a job well done. And now 30 years later to sometimes be going, well, wait a second, that was taken. Well, you threw it out. I mean, again, we're just talking in the abstract. Sorry, I think you were going to.
Yeah, what I was going to say with all the 2001 stuff, I mean, Kubrick would be incensed that that stuff was going up for auction, and like I just wonder if if he was still around when this was all going on, if he would have been more litigious about it and saying, hey, I assigned that to be destroyed, and then but like what claim do you have to that because you gave it away to put it in a skip it's just stuff like this doesn't happen with art. Nobody orders a Monet to be destroyed at the end of at the end of painting. So I don't know. It's all very fascinating, and it's a bit of it's a slippery path, figuring your way through this, because a lot of these things just kind of bull forward and go to auction. Other things are pulled, and other things, as we'll discuss tonight, are there's a deal to be made around it.
There was years ago, and I may have told a version of this story years ago. One of the Star Wars posters showed up in auction. It was put in by a 20th Century Fox marketing guy. And the piece was pulled by Lucasfilm, and the guy had been given it by 20th Century Fox. He worked at 20th Century Fox. His boss said, "Why don't you take this?" And he ultimately, I think, backed down because he didn't want to pay, he didn't want to have a lawyer, whatever. He also wanted to, I think he wanted to do the right thing. I think he wanted to return it to George, wanted George to see him in that light. But I always wondered about that because, like, again, there wasn't documentation like this was supposed to go back. It went to 20th Century Fox. They paid for the artwork, and then they said, "Why don't you take this to a guy?" And now George Lucas is going, "That should be mine." So that's one I definitively remember.
Yeah, I own a painting that was a bit of contested ownership as well. Yeah, my Struzen. My Struzen, I did not buy it at auction. It did originally sell through auction about 15 years ago. I got it from a private collector who bought it at the auction. He bought two, so he had an extra one.
Sure, of
course.
We
were doing a trade deal, and I coveted it very much, so I was able to get it. It's one of my favorite pieces that I have.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Picture is now up. Hopefully you can see it all.
Yep. Yeah. And apparently he never took legal action or anything, but Drew was aware of the auction and was pissed about it because, he thought that those were meant to be returned to him, and contractually or with just a handshake deal or whatever. So again, he never did anything about it, but I never spoke with him directly, but my friend who has the other piece actually got to talk to him one-on-one, and he was pleasant about it and whatever, but just kind of said, "Hey, you're lucky I didn't get more aggressive about that." But it was a murky thing because in my understanding, the source was very similar to the Star Wars painting that you're talking about. The source for that auction was not a guy in a Hamburglar mask. It was somebody that worked at Paramount Studios.
We should say he does wear a Hamburglar mask, but that is for fun and recreation. Yes, exactly.
And
but
who
not
are we to judge?
Connected to the art of burglary. Yeah, no. An innocent bystander. I heard another story recently, and I unfortunately have to leave a couple of details out because I think it's ongoing litigation, which kind of sucks, which is a recent prop effects piece that was sold in an auction where the the effects house guy is now saying that was taken from me and sort of suing to stop it and is pursuing legal action. And I got to be honest, and again, I don't know the details of the case, but I'm not sure what he's going to show or prove. I'm very curious to see what happens. Look, my guess is at the end of the day, it was a piece that sold for a shitload of money. It was a very public sort of like, oh my God, look at this effects piece selling for a lot of money. And I'm guessing ultimately there's someone just looking a little bit for a cash payout. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, sometimes that is why you sue. It's like, I want a piece of that, but I am very curious to see what happens. I mean, again, I'm sorry for the vagueness, but again, it's ongoing, and I'm interested. Yeah,
I know.
And if he sued that guy, I don't want them suing us. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. We're not the lawsuits that dreams are made of. That's a different podcast.
We're the whiskey that dreams are made of.
The monkey whiskey
gorilla, the whiskey gorilla decanters that dreams are made of. Yes.
Are you considering selling some pieces from your collection in Prop Store's Summer 2024 Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction? And are you wondering what are some of the top franchises that Prop Store has sold? You can use Prop Store's sold archive at propstore.com to help answer that question. Here's a list of Prop Store's top 10 movies/franchise sales and the items that have sold publicly. That's going to be read by my co-host, David Mandel.
This is going to be very funny. Number 10, James Bond, Thunderball, hand-painted Robert McGuinness poster artwork, 275,000 pounds, approximately $341,000, sold in the 2023 UK auction to me. Go on. Number 9. Superman.
I wonder who bought
Superman's Christopher Reeve complete costume. 312K, 500 pounds, approximately $359,375,000, sold in the 2022 UK auction. I don't know who bought that. Number 8, Castaway. Chuck Nolan's Tom Hanks. Nolan. I don't think I realized this was his last name.
I guess
Tom Hanks' screen-used hero-matched Wilson. Oh, I remember that.
I thought it was just Tom Hanks lost on a beach. I didn't realize that he was playing a character.
Number 7, Batman: The Dark Knight Rises. Hero Batpod vehicle, 312,000 pounds, approximately $405,600, sold in the 2016 UK auction. Number 6, Shawshank Redemption. Andy Dufresne's, Tim Robbins, screen-matched Rock Hammer Bible. Well, we do remember that. 387,500 pounds, approximately $445,625, sold in the 2022 UK. Number 5, Back to the Future. Back to the Future Part 2. Michael J. Fox autographed Marty McFly lenticular Mattel hoverboard. 375,000 pounds, approximately $506,250, sold in the 2021 UK. That is the hoverboard that launched 1,000 hoverboard auctions.
Yes,
is how I like
and
to think
I
of that
did not
one.
buy that or bid on it, but I was sitting next to the guy who was selling it, and that was a very exciting auction to be at.
Number 4, The Thing. Norris, Charles Hallahan's Spiderhead Thing. $587,500, sold in the 2023 U.S. auction. Number 3, Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford's Raiders of the Lost Ark signature fedora. 393,600 pounds, approximately $511,680. Number 2, Poltergeist. This is still unbelievable. The screen-matched evil clown doll. $656,250, sold in the 2023 U.S. auction. So number 1 for Star Wars as a franchise, the screen-matched ILM Red Leader X-Wing model miniature, $2,375,000. I was the underbidder. Sold in 2022 US. So I am.
Boy, did that guy do you a favor, didn't he, Dave?
1 in 10. 1 in 10. 1 in 10. Yes. Also, if you're considering selling items in Prop Store's summer auction, don't forget there are new movies from Deadpool and Wolverine, Aliens, Beetlejuice, Saw, and Joker coming this summer. With those movies top of mind, it could be a good time to sell items from those franchises. That's a cool way.
Please sell your Beetlejuice book. Whoever's got it out there,
or anything good Beetlejuice. I still would really like to get a good Beetlejuice piece. Contact Prop Store at propstore.com/sell to submit a list of items you'd like Prop Store to evaluate for auction. So if you have something great to sell, just send it to Stuff Dreams Are Made Of at, what is it?
gmail.com. Very good.
Propstore.com.
Dreams Are Made Of podcast at gmail.com.
Or propstore.com/sell to submit your list. The deadline for summer consignments is May 17th. So send your list today to ensure you make the deadline.
And while you're searching around on propstore.com's website at propstore.com, don't forget to use your discount code Dave10 or Ryan10 and help me go to become a 4-time winner of the favorite host. Get 10% off your buy now order through the end of the season and vote for your favorite host at the same time. So good.
There's another sort of, dare I say, case that has kind of come up, which brings us to a sort of a special guest for us tonight. So when was that? 2 years ago that this auction was originally announced? Do you remember?
No, I mean, I think it was last summer. I think it was. I think it was maybe not even.
Time is very.
I know.
Yeah, time no longer exists.
Very fluid. Yeah. But no, I think it was about a year. My memory was last summer. I could actually check because I emailed the lady who would know what the situation was going on when it got pulled. But I can figure that out. We can post it in the show notes or whatever. But yes, we can actually ask our guest tonight when it came up. But I believe it was about a year ago. That's my memory of it.
So basically, the Blade Runner, what do we call it? The Blade Runner painting,
the final comp for the one sheet.
It is not the finished version of the one sheet, but it is the one that was basically approved, where they went, this is what we want the one sheet to look like.
Go make it fine art.
It very much looks like the one sheet. There's probably a little less detail in some of the faces. They're not quite the photorealistic, whatever. By John Alvin, wonderful artist. Went up for auction, was pulled from auction, and then it was announced this week, that Heritage, brought to you by Propstore, or maybe now at this point brought to you by Heritage. I don't know where we are in the timing, 35 minutes. So that's probably, maybe that's now we're into the Heritage section.
Yeah,
we're in the Heritage section. Yeah. Basically, it was pulled out of a Heritage auction. I don't know if Heritage was involved in the settlement, but basically a deal was reached between, I guess, the original seller and the Alvin family, to basically, it's going to be sold through Heritage, and we're going to hear all about this. But so a happy ending was reached, and the piece is going up for auction, which will allow Ryan to bid on it, which is really the most important part
That's what we're trying
of
to get
this
at.
entire story.
Yeah.
On the Blade Runner, basically final comp piece, and we have as a special guest John Alvin's widow. John Alvin is sadly no longer with us, whose name is
Andrea Alvin.
Andrea Alvin. And our email is
dreamsaremade@gmail.com.
So please welcome Andrea Alvin. Hey, Andrea, how are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I see paintings behind you. Sorry, I'm just struck by this. Is this? I have to ask this first question right off the bat. Is that John's work? Are you an artist yourself? Or
I am an artist. Those are my paintings.
Oh, wonderful.
And John and I met. We both went to Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles.
Very cool.
And that's how we met. I worked with John for many years, like first unofficially. And years later, he went to work at a studio called Intralink. When he left there, then we opened our own studio, Alvin and Associates, and he and I were basically partners in that. He was doing illustrations, I was designing concepts. We both worked together on.
Oh wow, very cool.
So we would get an assignment from the studio. We'd come up with a concept for the poster, do a lot of roughs and that sort of thing.
So they would come. That was at that point they were coming to you because obviously the Alvin name had become a poster art name, and in the great days of obviously before everything is a photograph, and obviously everything is. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen a really great poster. I don't know where that fits in. Yeah.
Yeah. John's first movie poster was Blazing Saddles. So
that's amazing.
He was working with a designer named Anthony Goldschmidt, and Anthony had come to him and said, look, do you want to do it? This is on spec because Mel Brooks is doing this movie. They hate everything that they're doing. So they basically came up with an idea. I was kind of integral in some of the elements that were in it, and did a poster. Mel Brooks loved it, minor change, and it was printed, and that started his career. That was like everything ballooned after that.
Just to speak conceptually for a second, because honestly, you are the first person I've ever actually spoken to that did this work. And you talked specifically about that sometimes you were working on the concept stuff. What were you given? Were you given a script and some stills maybe? Or were you ever sometimes the movies existed? Like what are you seeing that allows you and John to start conceptualizing this stuff? Because I was always curious. Yeah.
Sometimes, ideally, we would get to go see a screening. Usually, before it's completely edited, and we'd get to see a screening of it. And that's ideal. Sometimes we'd get a treatment. Sometimes you'd get a little page. Sometimes we'd see a script, and
Right.
Sometimes we'd see a treatment, which was a little more fleshed out. And sometimes you'd get like, oh, it's got this, and this in it. But basically, the best situation was being able to see a screener. Either later it was video screeners, but early on we'd get to go into the studios and see they would show it to us.
Fascinating. I was always curious about that.
Yeah.
There are
so
stories.
It kind of deteriorated over the years. Earlier on you were dealing with the director. We'd get to go into the studio and see a screening of the film. So there was more involvement. And as time went on, the studios kind of went, oh, we don't want to have too much to do. We don't want anybody to have anything to do with you. So we're going to be the intermediary.
And you said John's first real poster was Blazing Saddles, so that's 1974, yeah, 5,
yeah, I think
something
you're
like
right.
that, yeah.
The same year, Young Frankenstein came out. The same year, so he did.
Oh,
that
yes, that's right.
well.
It's, you know what? It is 1974 because I remember there's a famous quote where Mel Brooks said 1974 was a great year for Mel Brooks and a terrible year for Richard Nixon. That's a Mel Brooks quote. So yeah, it was 1974. And from that first moment of obviously Blazing Saddles, take us through, if you can, that sort of journey of he does the first one, you guys do this first one, to he's someone people are coming to. Do you know what I mean? Where he is sought out. Yeah.
It exploded after Blazing Saddles. And there were a lot of movies that he did that now we're not really paying attention to. Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother, or
right.
I'm trying to think of some of them, but at the time were kind of important movies, but now we don't really
They've
remember
been forgotten
them.
a little bit. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that went on for quite a while, but then the job started getting better. I mean, he started doing Spielberg movies. He did E.T., which, as we used to joke, is the one that didn't get away. That was the big one. That was the big one. And he did probably more of Spielberg's movies that he directed than anybody else. And then a lot for his production company, Goonies, Gremlins, that sort of thing. So he did Color Purple.
Was E.T. first?
E.T. was first.
Okay.
E.T.
For some reason,
I
thought he did 1941, but I guess that was somebody else.
No, he did not. But he did Color Purple, Empire of the Sun.
This is a funny thing to say, but I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this too. There are some of the posters that he would do that had like the likenesses in it, where you would kind of go, that's a John Alvin poster. But then there are ones like The Color Purple or Empire of the Sun that are very, I would say, sort of more emotional and symbolic and in a completely different style. And I guess in my mind, you don't think of artists working in so many different styles. And I think that was to a real credit to you guys.
John was, he was concentrating on the movie. So what was the best way to sell the movie? Is it to have a John Alvin drawing or painting, or is it to find a concept that worked to sell the movie? As he would say, he wanted to have the promise of a great experience. So when we would come up with a concept when I was working with him, it was never like, well, we could put these two heads in here and then have another scene from the film. We would try to find that moment that kind of hopefully said what the director was trying to say.
Well, E.T. I mean, I think I that image is seared into my brain of Elliot and E.T.'s finger touching, and it's just that is the movie.
I think the great thing about a lot of John's work is that you remember the poster. If I say Blazing Saddles, you remember the poster.
Yes.
Say E.T., you remember the poster.
No, the poster
Blade
is
Runner, you remember the poster.
The poster is as much a part of the movie as the movie itself. And they are posters also that I've wanted to own. I mean, we're not talking about art. I'm just talking about
the poster.
College dorm room. I want to put a poster up. You know what I mean? Like in the most simplest form. Did John have a favorite poster or a favorite project that he worked on? Do you have a favorite, if or one that comes to mind? Yeah.
He would always say E.T. just because it was the big one. It was the biggest.
Sure. Makes sense.
I don't know if I have a favorite. I love when he would do this ethereal stuff like Beauty and the Beast, or some of one of the Willow posters, he had this way of using the airbrush that like he was glazing with watercolors. Right. So he would get these colors that nobody else could get, and this mood.
Do you have a favorite design of yours that you kind of take a little ownership of, where you kind of go, that was a really good design, and John made it into a great poster, but I know that was my design. Yeah.
I do. We had the re-release of Pinocchio in probably the 80s.
Okay.
And I designed that poster. I said, here's the blue fairy on top and this little Pinocchio. I picked out the pose and I went, she's gonna put her magic on Pinocchio, and I knew just what John could do with it. So yeah, that I'm very proud of that.
Excellent.
I worked on the Batman movies with him as well. I actually have the design credit on the Batman Returns and Batman Forever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
So I put those together in terms of how what was in them, and it was a billing nightmare. So something people don't understand, that the poster sometimes has to do with the billing, that the contractual billing.
Just that there were so many credits, or who you had to put on it, or what, or who goes first.
If you show Batman, and you show, let's say, Michael Keaton as Batman, then you have to show. And forgive me because the names are not going to come to me, but you have to show
Danny
the other
DeVito
you have to
Michelle
show
Pfeiffer.
Danny DeVito, or you have to show Michelle Pfeiffer, and you have to show them a percentage of the size of Michael Keaton,
hilarious.
and then you have to show. Then the title can only be a percentage of the. It's like becomes the harder one was actually Batman Returns. Batman Forever. I'm sorry.
Batman Forever, yeah. I forget who said it. I think it might have been the Mondo guys, but they basically said the art of the movie poster was destroyed by agents, because this is the thing that didn't exist in the 1960s and 70s when everything was illustrated. And then as we moved into photography, so came in the agents with the billing nightmare. And that's why now posters are heads, and there's a giant head, and then 3 smaller heads, and then 5 smaller heads around it, because it's all
probably
agents.
Everything is, that's 73% of the size of whatever.
It happened when these giant agencies, they were representing the director, the producer, the actors, and the writer. So they would put a package together, and then they would say, well, if Tom Cruise we're paying him, so much money, I don't want to I want to see Tom Cruise. You've got to show Tom Cruise as the main character, or the 2 people that are in it. And that was really the end of the real creativity.
The loss of sort of like moments from a movie or things like that, or dare I say, abstract moments was the great loss to posters. I was going to point out something very interesting. Contractually, Jack Nicholson, because his contract is very well known, was so good for the original Batman movie, he contractually had to be on all the sequel. You had to have Jack Nicholson as the Joker on those posters. No, that's a joke.
Yeah,
it's a contract Jack Nicholson joke. Yeah,
yeah. These guys from Mondo, it's like they could never be hired to do the posters, because they wouldn't understand. It isn't about your creativity. It's about you. And this is where John was brilliant, is within the confines of all of these things, he could come up with a brilliant solution and make a beautiful painting with a lot of emotion that other illustrators just didn't have.
I was just going to say, I think emotion is the right word, because I feel like when I look at his stuff, I get a sense of something, sorrow, glee, whatever it is. There's a lot of emotion in his work, and that hits me. By the way, in the Blade Runner poster, which we're going to get to in a minute, of just sort of, there is that just sense of this, I don't know, not exactly dystopian future, but there's noir to it, but there's also just that kind of on Ford's face. Yes, exactly.
It feels like the cover to a Raymond Chandler novel, but set in the future,
in outer space. Exactly. Whatever. Yeah.
No, I began my career, my professional career in advertising. I worked in print advertising, very boring medical advertising, but this is the ethos of what advertising is you have a singular image, an image and a line, and you have to sell an emotion. Right. And movie posters used to do that. And now they sell who's the most important, who's the highest paid actor in the movie.
Yeah.
So Andrea, to talk about sort of the phases of his career, there's a certain point, and this is going to get us to the Blade Runner story for a second. At a certain point, he's a freelance guy doing work for a central, forgive me, movie poster agency, right? Where they're kind of coming to him basically
there were design studios that did The
Sure.
studio would hire the design studio to do the poster, to do the print campaign. That's a better way of saying it. So yeah, he was doing it through these design studios.
And then eventually you guys found your own. So that's the two phases of his career.
There's a middle segment, and he went to work for this studio, Intralink, which was Anthony Goldschmidt's company.
So he's now not freelance; he's full time at this one studio exclusive. Gotcha.
Right,
okay.
Doing pretty much every poster that came through.
Okay.
Anthony built that studio on John's art. So it was Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, all of that stuff was John's. So he opened the studio with John's reputation, basically. The best thing that came out of that is that the people in the studio, because he now had direct access to all of the people in the studios, those people now knew who was really doing the work.
Sure. They got to know him. Yes.
They got to know John, and they got to know who was really doing the work. So that was phase 2. When he left there, that's when we opened our studio. And people call, as soon as they found out, they call him and they said, hey, we want to go directly to you.
Right. We're following you. Sure. So in those. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So, but Blade Runner would have been done under
freelance.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So in these different phases, what happens to art? That's the easiest way I can sort of say it. Take us through, because I'm assuming when you guys have your own studio, when you at the third phase, you do something and he's doing it and he's in charge. You guys are in charge of the company, and I'm guessing that's the stuff in your collection you probably consistently have the most of, I guess, if that makes any sense.
That would
because you were responsible for returning it to yourselves, which is usually a very easy thing to do.
Well, here's where the problem would come in. John was a very busy artist. Let's just say that.
Yeah, sure.
He would do the artwork. It had to go to the studio. This had to be shot. It wasn't like today where you send in a file. So the physical art would have to go to the studio, and they would have to take pictures of it. Even if it was drawings and comprehensives. Do you need me to explain what a comprehensive is?
No, I think we talked a little bit about calling it the final comp and what it was, or specifically with So I think our audience gets it, at least at this point.
Okay, yeah. I kind of like to say John did too, as a dress rehearsal for the finished art.
Right.
Okay, so we would do sometimes like a lot of black and white sketches, and then a bunch of color comps, and hopefully they would say, well, we like this idea. Can you flesh out a more involved color comp, and then the finish? The work would go to the studio. Sometimes it would come back, and sometimes we were onto another job, or John was onto another job. So we weren't keeping track of what was left at the studio or what came back. So some things would come back and some things wouldn't. In John's case, a lot of his original finishes of those important posters, I know in the case of E.T. it was given to the director of advertising. John and Anthony gave it to him.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, I have no idea where they are. I don't know where Young Frankenstein is. I don't know where the original Blade Runner art is. Was it given to Ridley Scott? Did somebody in the studio just walk off with it? We don't know. So being
a nerd, I asked. I had an in to Sir Ridley, and I didn't talk to him directly, but I talked to somebody that knew, and I said, like, you can ask any question of Ridley Scott, and of course I'm asking, does he have the original Blade Runner one sheet art? And I was told yes. I was told yes, for whatever that's worth.
Okay, well I have not seen it with my own eyes, but yes. I am not going to go to Ridley Scott and say, I think that art belongs to me.
Yeah.
I will say I heard he's putting it on eBay. I heard Ridley Scott has been posting a lot of stuff
for like $1,500, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so in that case, I mean, things come up for auction or on eBay, and most of the time, if it's not an important piece, I'm not going to waste my time or money. And emotional. It's emotional.
Sure.
Okay, because I see these things come up and it's like, that really does belong to me. But I can't, to go after it is, I'm not a litigious person. It's not who I am. John would not have done that. But in the case of this Blade Runner art, when I saw it come up, this is a high comp, what they would call a high comp. Everything isn't perfect in it. There was no effort made for it to look exactly like
Right.
the
We said
characters.
everything about it is pretty spot on, but the faces weren't the faces. That's how we looked at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
wasn't meant, they really wasn't the effort put in. It wasn't meant to do that. That's the time you put in on the finish. So when that came up, um, the description said it was purchased from an employee at Warner Brothers. So there is no employee at Warner Brothers that would have ownership of the art to sell it to anyone, even if it were an executive. I mean, an executive's not going to sell it to some guy, you know. It's like a guy that just came along. So I knew that the provenance of it was wrong, and that it really was something that I could go after. I didn't expect it to take so long. I didn't expect it to cost so much, but we persevered, and ultimately we won. He relinquished ownership of it, and in the process, we have to sell it. We have to put it back up for auction. Part of the mediation that we went through. These things come up a lot, and then the person, we did find out who was working at Warner Brothers at the time, and he said, "Well, I got it out of the dumpster." But that's an excuse that I hear all the time. That's like the cat ate my homework. It's the same excuse over and over again. It's like, "Oh, I found it in a dumpster." So I think what happens is that these things go into the post-production department. They're in flat files or closets or whatever, and they sit there for a while. There's no way that I would know that it's there. I had no idea where these things were, and I've asked, and we would ask different people, "Do you know where this is or where that is?"
So over the years, you had made it. Not, I'm not. I want to be really clear. I'm not talking specifically about Blade Runner, but in general, there have been times over the years where you have gone on fishing expeditions, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I guess fishing's the wrong word, where you've requested, "Hey, do you have any of John's stuff from when we were working together?" You have
Exactly.
asked them to
Yes.
look over the years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And nobody really wants to do it, so they'll just
Sure.
go, I don't know where anything is. I mean, in one case, I know that where John worked, and let me be as vague as I can,
That's fine.
for a long time. When that company closed, I had asked prior to that if he knew where any of John's originals were, and he said, absolutely not. I have no idea. And then a bunch of things came up for auction, and it turned out that they gave me the name of the guy who consigned it, and I talked to him, and he said, well, I bought a garage full of office equipment and everything that was in the office equipment. So all those pieces of art were there.
So they were
all
just
along.
sitting in a flat file, and a guy bought a flat file.
Yes.
Wow.
And because of where he bought it and who he bought it from, I'm not sure that I could try to get it, to do anything. It's like you have to pick and choose what you're going to put your effort into.
It's messy. I mean, there's no great answer here. It's very messy. And obviously the guy, forgive me, there's no easy way of putting this. The guy that probably was trying to sell it to Heritage, maybe 3 steps down the line from whatever happened. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to get into specifics here.
Right. I'm not going to say that. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just trying to say,
in a sense, he was a victim maybe as well.
He's not the guy that took it from John in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And that is one of the shames of all of this, just on a grand scale. It sucks that you don't have the art. It sucks that this guy,
artists in general, and I've talked to, Drew Struzan is he's the other guy. John and Drew were the 2 top illustrators doing movie posters. And I've spoken to his wife, and they were very concerned about what was going on. They wanted to know too, because he's in the same situation. The pieces come up, and the problem is that we didn't, as artists, they didn't get commissions. They didn't get residuals. So even though E.T. was on, bath towels and sheets and all this stuff, that didn't benefit us in any way. So you have to hope that maybe where you will get something is in the sale of the original art, or of the drawings and the comps and things that come up. So when you see something come up of your art, or as in my case, John's art, not only am I not, somebody else is benefiting from it. We're not getting any money. It's very frustrating, and it happens all the time. I'm sure with props, it's the same thing. People probably walk off the set with them.
Yeah, that's even murkier in a lot of cases.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
Because it's made for the making of the film, especially things in the era that Dave and I collect from, which is before anybody knew any of this stuff had any value. So these things, just simply, walked off the set. I mean, I don't know if you can see it back there. I have a stormtrooper helmet that was, found in the soundstage after filming wrapped, because it was just left behind because the movie's done. It was this little science fiction thing that we did that may or may not, have a history to it. And then 40 years later, it ended up in auction. So those are even murkier. I mean, I think you see more of these situations with this kind of, Dave, you correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of original art. I mean, I think of that Macquarie painting that had shown up in Heritage a couple of years ago that vanished. The conceptual art that was
it was one of the sort of more well-known sort of concept paintings. And I don't necessarily remember this. There was no great story to it. It was just sort of George Lucas going, that's supposed to be mine. I'm supposed to have all of them. I have the other.
I paid for all of
this. I have the other ones. And wherever.
There's also to know that people have to understand there are two aspects. There's the original art, and there's the purchase of the studio of the usage of the art.
We weren't even getting into usage. Usage is its own other. That's a different podcast. But I understand your point.
Exactly. So the studio buys the rights. They own the intellectual property. So I can't say Blade Runner belongs to me. So when I did the book, I had to get permission from the studio to put that in the book. They didn't pass anything along. I own the art. They own the rights to.
And really quickly, just because you brought it up, please tell us the name of the book. Tell our audience the name of the book, because it's a really great book.
Yeah, and I can actually show you one of them here.
Oh, fantastic.
It's called The Art of John Alvin.
Yeah, wonderful.
Gorgeous book.
Published by Titan Books. And I do take you through all of the process. And that was my goal with the book. There are two goals. One of them is that John's name, people don't know John's name. They don't associate his name with the work. So over the years, especially since he's passed away, that has been my goal, to put those two things together so that people
get the name out there more. Yep, of course.
Yes. So and the book was part of that effort. And also that people like you asked me, what do you do? How do you get started? People always ask, how does a movie poster get made? Where does it come from? So I tried to take you through the process, showing even the little scribbles that he did on like yellow pads and things like that.
Speaking of part of the process, you can't see it because it's attached to the wall right here, but I'm the owner of the pencil comp for the original Blade Runner one sheet, which our friend Leslie helped put us together, and I love it. It's one of my favorite art pieces that I have, and it's I will post a picture of it on the feed. We'll put it in here so everybody.
Yeah, and I'll do the same. I own a couple of the pencils from the concert poster, the R2 and C3PO.
Now I see where they went.
Yes. So
And
very excited about those.
I just always marvel at the detail, and it's the thing that people come into my office and they stand and stare at, because the level of detail, and you can't see it, but it's done at sort of it's basically a tabloid kind of size, so it's almost like 11 by 14. It might be a little bigger than that, but you think of a big movie poster of this size, but the level of detail that he got in, even in a comp that was being used,
it's
to
all
sell
there, even in the comp. There's nothing better to me. You were talking about like little yellow legal pad stuff, and again, I think I like art so much because I still draw like a 6-year-old, like I put the sun in the corner and like whatever, I draw, it's sort of a mix of 6-year-old or like Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's just terrible.
Yes.
But what I truly love is that ability when you see like a little sketch, and sometimes it's like 2 inches big and you go, holy shit, that's the poster. Like it's 2 inches big, but it's all there in the 2-inch little sketch on a hotel pad or whatever it is. There's nothing better.
Kind of artists. And John was the kind of artist that in a way is kind of the storybook. He could think of something. You could say, oh, can you draw me a picture of, and then describe a scene. And he could, sit there and draw it out, sketch it out, and it looked pretty good. I can't do that. I mean, I'm a good artist. I'm a really good artist, but I can't do that. So it's a particular skill that he had.
It's like those people that can like sit down at a piano and pick out a tune.
Right.
For our listeners that are interested in John's art and maybe wanting to get a piece of John's art let's put the Blade Runner controversy aside for a minute.
Okay. We do need to say, right. But we do need to say that it is coming up for auction.
I was literally about to say, so it is now coming up for auction at Heritage. HA.com sponsoring this half of the show at this point, by the way. Although,
do you know the dates yet?
Yes, the July 13th and 14th.
Right. Okay.
So that's going to be their big July auction.
Their signature auction. Yeah.
And it's going to be in their entertainment auction. It's not in a movie poster auction unto itself. Exactly. I think it's in their big July entertainment prop auction, which is going to be a big spectacular. I think that's a great place for it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you can start, circle your calendar.
That's right.
I'm already.
You're getting ready. Get ready.
I already have to do some hexing work on I have a Blade Runner nemesis who I'm actually good friends with. I deeply, deeply love, but he's always outbidding me on Blade Runner. So I feel like this is another situation.
Let's keep getting the value
up. If he's listening, the auction is October 4th.
Yeah. Right. So
2027. Yes.
The other thing that we have done, and I will say it's Leslie and I, she's helped me put this together, is that we've taken all of the originals that we have of John's, and that's a lot of pencil sketches and comps and finished art, and we've put it together in one collection that we are selling. And we would really hope that it will all go together, because even as an educational thing, first of all, it's movie history. We don't have everything that he worked on, but we have a lot of really good pieces. We have from Aladdin, Arachnophobia, Beauty and the Beast, Hook, Pinocchio, Legend, Darkman, few ET things.
I know the Disney people love the Disney stuff, and I'm going to separate that for a second, but I always thought the Arachnophobia was just a gorgeous poster. Just like
it's really, another, yeah.
It just, it's a fun, silly, that's Joe Dante, I think, right? Was that Joe Dante?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
And just, it's just a fun, silly, creepy spider movie, and the poster evokes that. It's fun, silly, but also creepy. Yeah, it's a fun.
Gremlins is another one. Yeah,
of course. Yeah. It's Gremlins-esque. Yeah.
Are you bringing that to auction, Andrea, or what?
No,
what is the
at this time, no.
Okay.
The problem with an auction is they want to break it up and sell it. Piece by piece. So
you are truly trying to sell it as a unit, almost like an instant collection, but also perhaps a place that would preserve it, display. That would be the dream, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, we would love it to go to Lucas's new museum, which he is interested in, but things move very slowly.
Yeah, it feels very Lucas or very Academy Museum, just to pick two places.
We've been in touch with the Academy, but they don't really they want donations. They don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, someone could buy it and donate it to the Academy.
I thought of that.
Yeah.
I had that thought too,
I don't think that's our listeners. I'm just being very honest with
Mr.
you. Yeah.
Mr. Spielberg, yes.
I don't think that's
like that.
I just want to be really clear. This is not going to happen based on you appearing on this show.
Our listeners
There's a lot of things that might happen. You may get some emails like, can I please buy? But that's not going to happen. This is not the show for that. Yeah.
Right. So that's happening. I still have posters. I have a lot of John samples of posters that some of them I only have very few of, and others I have a few more of.
Are there still at Art Insights? Is it art? It's artinsights.com. Yes. Are there still individual pieces for sale on the site, like some of John's stuff, or you've now put it all into this one thing?
Collection.
Gotcha. Understood.
Right.
Is the collection viewable on Art Insights? Can we see what's all there?
By request. Okay. It's password protected. We have a lot of visual materials that sales materials to video and placement. So if anyone is interested, they would contact Leslie at artinsights.com, and she would send them materials with the passwords and how they can access it.
Well, I wanted to add, is there a, what's the word I'm looking for? From your perspective, and maybe this is a simple, I've asked this question, but now I'm asking it a different way. Is there a piece that you still have for you that will be like the last one that ever leaves you of the things you still have?
Not right now. No.
Nothing
I have
specific.
a few small pieces that that have kind of personal, but they're not necessarily even movie pieces. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Would he draw for fun, if you don't mind me asking? Would he paint and draw for fun ever, or is it at work?
Not a lot. He did he would do little drawings and things like that. But mostly, John just loved the problem solving of, I think, getting the assignment, figuring out what he needed to do. He was one of the few of these artists that was a conceptual person. I don't know about Drew. I think, not to denigrate Drew or anything that he does, but I think that he mostly was given the assignment, and but it's possible that he did some concept work. But John did a lot of concept work, so he came up, saw the movie, came up with an idea, and followed through to finish,
and then executed. Got it.
Yes, and I was part of that. I was part of that process too.
Is there anything else that's out there that is like a cut and dry, no, that belongs to us, that has gone missing or anything, or is it all this kind of stuff you know when you see it and it's murky?
I don't know. Mel Brooks probably owns Blazing Saddles, and Young Frankenstein, I was told, was that one of the producers had it, but then he died, and who knows? That's another missing piece that I would love to have back.
Is it conceptually better for you when the directors have it? Sort of. Is that somehow slightly better?
Well, I kind of, if they do, I kind of feel like what am I going to do? I'm not going to.
Sure.
I'm not going to go after a piece that a director has. It's a lot of these small pieces, these comps and things that were definitely belong to us. They belong to the artist. The studio never even, they don't ever have ownership of sketches and comps. And those are the easy ones for someone to walk out of the studio with.
Sure, because they're small and whatnot.
They're small. They'd be in a drawer. So, it's, and the emotional aspect of it too. This was really hard. It's really hard to get this piece back. It was, aside, like I said, aside from the time and the money, it was just emotionally very trying.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, obviously we hope it goes crazy, although maybe, I don't know if Ryan wins, maybe not so crazy, but pretty crazy, like somewhat crazy. But obviously,
It's going to do very well.
Yeah, I think it's going to do well. I don't think you have to worry
I
about
hope
that
so,
part
yes.
of it. So I hope at least the number makes the effort worth it all. And obviously it will be emotional. And I don't know if you can put a price on emotion, but hopefully you can, I
What I
guess.
do need to,
Let's
yeah,
see if we can put
what I do need to say about it, though, is that it sets a precedent for me and for other artists that when these things come up in this kind of murky world of movie art, that we do have ownership, because the people that have it would say, well, you don't own it, you gave up, you abandoned it, or you did this or that. But this sets a precedent so that myself and other people can go after these this artwork that shows up.
Yeah.
So legally, it's an important thing, and it's important for other artists as well, and not even just illustrators, for fine art. I mean, which is where I'm at right now. Um, Galleries close and they keep the art, or there's a lot of situations where the artists are just, their work is just walking out the door.
On that note, we're going to wrap up, but we always like to play this sort of a little game. And I think we'll stick in the world of poster art. So as an artist and a designer yourself, Andrea, and taking John out of the equation, if you could just miraculously have the original art to any poster by any, and whether we know the artist or not, any movie poster in the history of movie posterdom, what would you take? Yeah.
I don't know. I see these things come up at auction that are these old movies. I'm an old movie buff, a lot of musicals. They didn't have the best posters, but
Singing in the Rain's a great poster. Well,
Singing in the Rain's a great poster. Yeah, I would love that. Or maybe anything with Judy Garland in it, because I'm, a total Judy Garland nerd. Some of the early, like the Frankenstein, some of those MGM monster movies. It was MGM, right? Am I getting it right? Yeah.
No,
Universal.
Universal, right?
Very
Universal.
cool, but very cool. Yeah.
Very cool posters for that. So, I don't know.
Classic era.
Yeah, that's all right. There's no answer. That's the point of the question.
No, sometimes it's it might be just the person who's in it that but they also, like that Nosferatu. I think there's a really cool poster for that. Yeah.
It's a cliche, and I know,
Which
of course,
Star Wars poster
I know everyone was like, "Oh, what Star Wars ones are you going to pick?" No, I am. It's the biggest cliche in the world. I'm going right to Casablanca. If I could own an original Casablanca poster, I'm happy, and I'm done. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
It is obvious, but I don't care. It would just be incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now that changes my thinking a little bit. I was going to go for the very sort of expected Ryan answer, which is I just love the Richard Amsel, the original Raiders.
Of course, of course. And by the way, and it's hard not to pick that too. I thought about that also. Yeah. But I had to go. I just went. I don't know. I went old and classic.
But there's an Amsel piece. So I'll go a little bit less expected. There is an Amsel piece, and I've seen it live. It's a little older than that, from one of my very favorite films. Is his art from The Sting.
Oh,
and that's
actually that was an auction.
Piece. Yeah, and it's Newman and Redford, and I think Newman's sitting on the desk, and Redford's at the desk. And
wonderful poster. Yeah.
Glorious,
I do have one Star Wars concert poster left that I want to sell.
Oh, you mean the finished, the not a concept
artwork,
piece?
But
the actual poster.
Itself. Yeah.
Which is a great. I mean, look, you'll do as you do, but those things, when those do pop up in auction, go for good numbers. But I do think people would probably come to you. So if you're interested in that, reach out to Art Insights as well. That's a great poster. I am a fan of that one as well. To me, it is. In a world of everyone's got the same Star Wars posters, when you see one of those, it's usually the one other people don't quite have. You know what I mean?
Right.
In a world
with a kind of an interesting story too, a backstory, because the concert never happened.
Oh, I don't think I realized that. I thought it's so rare. I just thought it was rare because it was a one-time event and it just never.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's funny. I don't think I realized it had never happened. That's very funny.
No, it never happened. So that's why it's so rare. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
See, Dave, you didn't miss the concert.
Yeah, I know. And I was
Yeah,
kicking
see?
myself for years. Like, why didn't I hate my
How
parents for
couldn't
not
I?
taking
Yeah.
me? Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
you have to call them and apologize.
That's
that's
fine.
right.
Um, Andrea, thank you so much. We're going to let you go and then we'll wrap up. But thank you so much. This was
Well,
fantastic.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Andrea.
I really
Again,
appreciate it.
please check out the book. Go to artinsights.com if you want to learn more about John and his stuff. She's got the one concert poster left. Anything else, or did I think I said it all? Yes?
The book is available on Amazon,
There
The
you
Art of
go.
John Alvin. And
Great.
yeah.
And then bid, but not against me on at Heritage
Right. And if you're
Auctions.
Yeah.
interested in buying the whole collection, please contact Leslie at
There you
But
go.
artinsights.com.
also, think about it. It's not a whole collection where you can go, how about $600? So I'm just simply saying
No,
to
it's
our
a lot of
viewers,
money.
yeah, to our
Yeah,
viewers,
it's a lot
don't
of
waste their
money.
time, please. Don't waste their
No.
time, please. Yeah. Don't, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to see it, that's one thing, but don't waste their time. But yeah. Okay.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Really nice to meet you guys.
Well, that was a fascinating interview. It's funny because I was just expecting Andrea to come on and talk about this case and the piece, and it actually ended up being this really instructive lesson
Yeah,
on the making of a movie poster.
I will say the following. The case, I continue to think it's all messy, and I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
But I am very happy for her. And by the way, johnalvinart.com, if you just want to see John's art, I should throw that in there. And
Yes.
that'll be in our notes as well.
And
It's
look,
just
I will also
fantastic.
say
Yeah.
I'm happy for the collector community because I know of two people in particular who were very disappointed when that art got pulled out of auction. And I know that this is a boon for the collector community, and sort of whoever's buying this is ultimately not going to really care as to how things got divvied up in the end. And I think the fact that it will end up in a place where it's framed and beloved and not living in some flat file somewhere, that is a good end for the piece at the very least.
And hearing those stories of asking for stuff back, being told no, and being lied to, I mean, those are horrible, horrible stories.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just some terrible, terrible stuff. I think the gray area, and they also sort of talked a little bit about it, is obviously there are things that John did give people, and directors have stuff and whatever, and it's just hard. I don't know. I stand here just going, it's like I want her to have everything she should get. She should have her husband's art, the art that she worked on as well. At the same time, I do think there are innocent collectors that, are getting stuff 1,000 steps down the line. And that's tough too. It's just messy. It's just unfortunately a little bit messy. And
I think with the stuff that you and I collect, I think there's always a worry in the back of your mind when you're bidding on this or whatever, is someday is somebody going to knock on the door and say, hey, that's mine, or hey, that was stolen, or something.
Every time I have lent a piece to a museum exhibit, it goes through my head, like, not that like the exhibit like breaks it or ruins it or loses it, but just simply it being on display gets somebody to go, hey, wait a second, that's mine. And it's unfortunate because then it makes you not want to share. And what can you say? And especially, look, to their credit, and I will say this, they stopped the auction at the right time, as opposed to, I'll simply say, letting the auction happen and then coming after it years later. I have a big problem with that when things have publicly sold and then down the line, and this is not about the Alvins, this is just in the sort
general,
of in general.
The stuff does happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I worry about that stuff too. But yeah, that's my sum up is
That's a good sum up, Dave. Well, write us, tell us what you think.
Tell us what you think, because I think this is a much discussed thing, and it's less of I'm not even looking for the legal answer. I just think there's got to be an answer, a way that that if someone does end up with something and they are not the Hamburglar that stole it, how do you make them whole? How do you, how do you try and keep everybody happy? Because I do think that's in some ways, that's the hard part. That all being said, it's coming up in July. You got to make a run for it. I know you got to figure it out with the other guys, but I feel like you got to make a run.
I'll be chatting. I'll be chatting.
Yeah.
But in the meantime,
I'm going to bid you up. I'm just telling you right now.
I just want to remind everybody that at the very least, I have these.
One of those, I believe, was taken from a flat file.
Oh,
in 1974, and rightfully belongs to me.
Yeah. Well, let's check the sales figures at propstore.com, Dave. I think
Brought to you by Heritage.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. This actually was, I don't even know what I thought this was going to be, but this was fascinating. So tell us what you think about anything that we talked about, because I feel like we talked about a lot. This one ended up...
We went all the way from whiskey to stolen art, I think, in the end, and learned about the making of a movie poster in between.
Yeah, very, very cool. Thank you, everyone. Check us out on social media. Follow us, rate us 5 stars on the podcast apps, and please subscribe on our YouTube channel and email us somewhere.
dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com, and follow us on @propspodcast on all of the relevant social media websites, especially truth.com.
Of which, by the way, I have a huge investment if anybody would like to buy some of my stock.
I would. And it depends, much like Bitcoin, it just depends on when you bought it as to whether that's really good or really bad. And I mean by what time on Tuesday you bought it. So
yeah, it's as it heads towards the toilet. Anyway, goodbye, everyone.